Hello dear friends, in this video we will discuss the real history of the 300 Spartans and the Battle of Thermopylae. Subscribe, we might never see each other again. The feat of the 300 Spartans at the Battle of Thermopylae, which took place in 480 BCE, is a striking example of courage and heroism. Hollywood has produced 3 films about this event, the first in 1962, the second in 2006, the most famous directed by Zack Snyder, and the third in 2014. This alone suggests that it is truly a captivating story. Of course, these films contain many inaccuracies, fantasies, and fabrications, but what really happened in reality? Background to the battle. The Battle of Thermopylae was one of the key engagements of the Greco-Persian Wars. The Persian king, Xerxes, assembled a massive army to invade Europe and conquer the Greek city-states. According to modern scholars, the size of the Persian army, which actually consisted of representatives from numerous different peoples, ranged from 80,000 to 250,000. However, the ancient Greek historian Herodotus claims the army numbered 5 million, a figure that clearly does not align with reality. In 481 BCE, the ambitious Xerxes sent envoys to many Greek city-states demanding earth and water, a symbolic gesture requiring them to acknowledge his authority. However, envoys were not sent to Athens or Sparta. Past experience suggested they might be treated harshly there. 10 years earlier, an Athenian Persian envoy delivering a similar message was executed, while in Sparta, another was thrown into a well and told to find earth and water there. That same autumn, a pan-Hellenic assembly was held in Corinth. A coalition was formed, and an agreement was reached to cease internal conflicts. Only through unity could they hope to counter the Persian threat. Envoys were dispatched to the rulers of Greek colonies with requests for assistance, though this effort met with little success. The following year, it became clear that Xerxes was extremely determined and serious. He even devised an ingenious method to transport his army from Europe to Asia, constructing 2 pontoon bridges made of linked ships across the Hellespont, now known as the Dardanelles. When this became known in Athens, the strategist Themistocles, who lived there, proposed engaging Xerxes in the narrow Thermopylae Pass gorge, the only land route to the southern regions of Greece, which Xerxes coveted. On the other hand, this location allowed the Greek forces to at least attempt to hold back the numerically superior enemy. To prevent the gorge from being bypassed by sea, Athenian ships and those of other allies were ordered to control the strait between the island of Euboea and the mainland of Greece. There, almost simultaneously with the Battle of Thermopylae, a major naval battle took place. Preparation for the battle. By mid-August, 480 BCE, the Persian army had reached the coast of the Malian Gulf. Near the entrance to Thermopylae, Xerxes sent an envoy to the Greek forces, offering them surrender in exchange for freedom and the title of Friends of the Persians. The united Greek army was led by the Spartan King Leonidas. He rejected all of Xerxes' proposals. The envoy then conveyed the Persian king's order to lay down their weapons, to which King Leonidas famously replied, "Mollen Lebe," meaning, "Come and take them." This phrase has since become legendary. The average width of the Thermopylae Pass was about 60 paces. The Greeks constructed a wall here, or more precisely, a low barricade made of heavy stones, and set up camp behind it, blocking the entire width of the pass. King Leonidas's army consisted of 7,000 hoplites, heavily armed warriors, and 2,000 archers. However, according to modern estimates, the number of Greek warriors defending the Thermopylae Pass could have reached up to 20,000. Of course, there could be no question of the 100-fold or 1,000-fold superiority of the Persians that ancient historians claimed. The warriors of Sparta, best in ancient Greece, undoubtedly. Special mention deserves Leonidas's personal guard, consisting of the famed 300 Spartans. The number of guardsmen was always kept constant. If one died, another would take his place. The Spartans earned a reputation in Greece as the bravest and most fearless warriors. Victory together, or death together, such was their motto. At the time, Leonidas was over 40 years old. Experts have been unable to determine his exact age at the Battle of Thermopylae, and it was believed he was a descendant of the demigod Heracles in the 20th generation. Before marching to Thermopylae, he personally selected 300 men from among the citizens, all of whom already had sons. The other Spartans were instructed to join the army after the festivals concluded, though the Spartan elders tried to persuade Leonidas to take more than 300 men. He remained steadfast. An interesting fact, even the Persian invasion did not deter the Spartans from observing their sacred festivities. At that time, Sparta was celebrating the Carneia, a 9-day festival in honor of Apollo Carneus. It should be noted that Sparta had developed a rather unique state system. The core principle was the unity of full-fledged citizens. The state strictly regulated the lives of Spartans, preventing the emergence of wealth disparities. Spartans were required to focus solely on military training and sports. Agriculture and crafts were the domain of the non-citizen Periuici and Helots. The education of youth was considered a state matter in classical Sparta. The entire upbringing system aimed to mold children into citizen warriors. From the age of 7 to 20, the sons of Spartan citizens were required to live in special military boarding schools. There, young men engaged in physical training, hardening exercises, and military games. They were also taught the skill of concise and articulate speech. Among personal qualities, endurance, loyalty, and decisiveness were deemed most important. In general, the upbringing in these schools was quite harsh, which is clearly one of the reasons why Spartans excelled in battle. The first days of the assault on Greek positions. Upon arriving at Thermopylae, Xerxes waited 4 days before, on the 5th day, launching an assault with his most combat-ready units, consisting of Medes and Persians. According to the historian Diodorus, the vanguard included warriors whose relatives had fallen in the Battle of Marathon, which had taken place 10 years earlier and resulted in a Greek victory. The initial Persian attack was fairly straightforward. They struck directly at the center. Relying on their clear numerical superiority, the Persians aimed to quickly decide the battle in their favor, but the Greeks met them and held their ground. The Greek tactic involved feigning retreat before suddenly turning and counterattacking the scattered Persians, a strategy that proved highly effective. This created a unique situation. The world's largest army at the time was unable to overcome a relatively small number of Hellenes. Moreover, a portion of the Greek warriors remained behind the wall. The Persian king then sent the Scythians and Sacae into battle, known for their brutality. Yet even these forces failed to break through. They were lightly armed and lacked proper formation training, rendering them powerless against the disciplined phalanx of the enemy. Sheltered behind a solid line of massive shields, as the day drew to a close, a 10,000-strong unit known as the Immortals was sent into combat, though, of course, they were mortal. The name referred to the elite guard of the Persian army. However, they too retreated after a brief engagement. The 300 Spartans participated in the battle throughout, and according to the historian Cassius, their losses were minimal, only being 3 men. On the second day, the Persian king once again sent his infantry to assault the Greek positions. He promised generous rewards for a successful advance and execution for fleeing the battlefield. But this too proved ineffective. All attacks on the second day were fruitless. Xerxes' units replaced one another, yet this led to no progress. The Persian king was forced to return to his camp. The betrayal of Ephialtes. Xerxes was at a loss on how to proceed until, on that same second day of battle, a man named Ephialtes approached him. In exchange for a substantial reward, he offered to show the Persians a mountain path bypassing the Thermopylae Pass. In the 1962 film, 300 Spartans, Ephialtes' motivation is portrayed as a desire to win over a beautiful Spartan woman named Elay, with his newfound wealth, whom he admired. In the 2006 film, Ephialtes is depicted as a hunchback, rejected by Leonidas from his guard due to his inability to maintain formation with the tall, stately men, fueling his resentment and turning him into a traitor. However, the true motives of Ephialtes remain shrouded in mystery. What is known is that the Greeks later named a demon ruler of nightmares after the traitor. The secret path was guarded by forces of the Phocians from central Greece, about 1,000 in total. An elite Persian detachment of 20,000 men, led by the commander Hydarnes, marched silently through the night and attacked the unsuspecting Phocians at dawn. The Phocians were driven to a mountain peak, and Hydarnes taking advantage of this, continued moving toward the rear of the Hellenes defending Thermopylae. The Phocians sent messengers to report the Persian maneuver, but this information was already known. A Persian defector named Tyrastiad had informed the Greeks, led by Leonidas, of it the previous night, the death of the Spartans and other Greek warriors. By this time, Leonidas had about 5,000 warriors left. The news of the Persians advancing from the rear rendered the defense of the wall futile. Wishing to save a significant portion of the Greek army, Leonidas ordered them to retreat and join the other Hellenic forces. Indeed, around 2,000 warriors moved south. Leonidas himself remained with his 300 compatriots. Spartan law fundamentally prohibited retreat under any circumstances. However, the Theban militia, under the command of Demophiles, and the Thespian militia, under Leontiades, totaling approximately 2,000 men, also refused to leave. In the end, at Thermopylae, they shared the fate of the Spartans. Noticing the Persians, led by Ephialtes, approaching from the rear, the Greeks retreated from their barricades and took up positions on a hill at the exit of Thermopylae. They no longer hoped to win, only to die with honor. Ultimately, a small band of brave Hellenes engaged in battle, where the pass widened significantly. Even there, the Persians struggled to maneuver effectively, with many dying. Due to crowding or falling off cliffs, the Persians fired arrows and hurled stones at the remaining Greek heroes on the battlefield. Still, the Spartans held their ground with great courage. When their spears broke, they fought with short swords and sometimes engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Herodotus attests that Spartans, Alpheus, Dionysius, and Maron displayed exceptional valor. A Thespian named Dithyrambus is also mentioned for his bravery. In the brutal melee, almost none survived. Leonidas fell in battle, but the Persians also lost Abracomes and Hyperanthes, brothers of Xerxes. After it all ended, Xerxes personally visited the battlefield. Upon finding Leonidas's body, he ordered his head to be severed and placed on a stake. Of the 300 Spartans, only Aristodemus survived. He had been left behind by Leonidas in Alpini, a settlement near the pass, due to illness. Upon returning to Sparta, he faced disgrace. No one spoke to him, and he was branded with the nickname Aristodemus the Coward. It is known that he later sought to redeem himself and died heroically at the Battle of Plataea. Some sources also suggest that another Spartan, Pantites, survived, having reportedly been sent as a messenger to Thessaly. Upon his return to Sparta, he too faced shame. In a gesture of respect to their adversaries, the Persians buried the fallen Hellenes with military honors on the same hill where the final battle took place. Soon after, a monument in the form of a lion statue, Leonidas means lion-like in ancient Greek, was erected over their grave, accompanied by a beautiful epitaph. The fallen Spartans were honored as true heroes on their homeland. Even 6 centuries later, each of them was still remembered by name in Sparta. Subscribe, we might never see each other again.